Hello and welcome. Today I'll be painting something a bit different. I've got here an Ork Commando proxy from Black Crag Miniatures. This is my most recent Patreon I've discovered. They make amazing orcs. They call them mutants for copyright reasons, I guess. I've already printed out a ton of their boys, and now this month being January 2022. I can't believe it. They've got commandos. This is the first month they're doing modular, and they are actually really detailed and really fun. The reason I decided to support them is just because the amount of detail. If you look there at the backpack, it is filled with dynamite and extra grenades and extra bedrolls and everything. And with it being modular, I've actually printed out a couple and just had fun gluing them all together. But today I'll be painting this one here with his siphon filter-esque goggles and what's that, a silenced gun? I think he's going to make quite a fun little commando. Let's get started. I'm going to start with some Ork flesh. This is a base coat paint and it is rather thin for a base coat, especially since I am obviously watering it down quite nicely. And I'm going to go around all the skin and do 2 coats of this. As you can see, the bodies that I printed for these ones actually aren't wearing shirts, so there's quite a lot of detail in between the straps, which is why I'm getting started with the skin as my first layer, so that if I do go over the straps, I'll paint those later, and it's not too worrisome. The Ork flesh base coat is done, and next up I need to apply a shade to it. I've been experimenting with a few things. You know, there's some nice greeny brown Athonian camo shade that works well. However, one thing I found when painting orcs, I want to get a lot of them out quickly. So what I've been doing is a roughly 2-to-1 mixture of contrast medium and the contrast orc flesh. This contrast paint applied over this green settles very nicely in those muscly recesses, as you can see there, but still leaves a very nice green on the orc skin itself. I'm actually a big fan of this color green, this more bright, almost cartoony green, much more than the earthy green. So I'm going to go around and give him a light contrast, like a weak contrast wash all over, let that seep into the muscles, but still give me that highlighted definition of that nice green orc flesh. That orc flesh contrast is actually given a nice lot of detail, and for the boys that I'm painting a lot of, or for like maybe Gretchen, I'll probably leave it there. However, he's shirtless for some reason. I don't know if that gives him extra stealth, but because he's shirtless, he's got a lot of skin, and I want to highlight it up a bit more. I've got here some Skarsnik green, and I'm just going to pick out some of the larger areas, leaving the orc flesh and the Ork flesh. Oh, that's confusing. They're so similarly named. And just pick out some of the raised areas with this Skarsnik green. Not going all the way, but just enough to give a nice little extra bit of interest on some of these muscly bits. So let me go around all of that. Fingers are definitely a nice place to do this. Anywhere where there's large amounts of skin, especially towards the top where the light would hit. That's just helped give it a little bit of extra detail, and something I won't do very often, but maybe just have some fun. I've got a Nurgling green. I wanted to try this out because it's not so much green as it is almost like a tan green, like a sick Nurgling-y green. Got a very tiny bit, and this will be for very, very sharp edges. So the ends of the ears, maybe the knuckles, just parts where maybe the skin is stretched a bit thin. I wanted to just see how that looks. And with that, I'm happy with the skin. It's a nice little bit of visual interest there, and a lot of different tones ranging from the very dark in the recesses to the almost tan edges on the fingers. Next up, I'm going to do his pants. I'm going to do them a nice camo pattern. Obviously not the same color camo as the base, because orcs don't understand camo. I'll do it just a regular, what I call the traditional camo, the regular just sandy jungly camo. And the base of that, I'm going to use some Steel Legion drab. So I've got some of this on my brush. I'm going to base his paints with this. Once again, just 2 thin coats. And at the same time, I'll probably use a little bit of this, maybe on the bedroll at the back here, just to add some extra bit of color there. As well as, let's do his bandana in the same color. The Steel Legion drab has been applied, and now it's time to do the camo patterns on the pants. I don't really know too much about camo, but it's great because orcs don't understand camo either. I've got here some wireflesh, and I'm just going to give sort of the impression of camo. I'm going to pick spots and just put like green blobby bits everywhere. I will go over the straps later, so if I accidentally hit the strap, it is not the end of the world, and this will just be for the pants. I'm not going to do this on the bedroll or on his mask bandana thing. And now I've got some rhinox hide, and I'm going to use this just to make some dark brown splodges. And that will be it for the camo pattern. While I've got this rhinox hide out though, I'm also going to use it to pick out a few other things. Namely his backpack. That would look quite nice in this dark brown. As well as maybe some of these pouches and things that he's got. Just anything that's going to be this dark material. With the rhinox hide done on both the pants, the backpack and some of the straps, I've now got some Zandri dust, and I'm going to use this for a few more of the strappy things. So for example, this strap over here, and this is a nice tanny brown color that will go very nicely with the others. So let me do that strap there, the strap holding on the stick grenade, and just all of these sort of belt buckly things except for the actual belt. And then to finish off all these bits and bobs, I've got some Corvus black here, and that's going to be for his boots, for his belt, and for his goggles. All of the base colors for the various little bits of material are done, and that is everything besides the metallics. So let's move on to that. There's quite a lot of metallics to do. I mean, the gun alone has got the scope and the silencer, little bullets hanging out there. There's the knife with the extra bits on it, not to mention the extra shells and knife and grenades and everything at the back. So what I've got here is a bunch of different metallic colors. I've got some iron tan steels for a bit of a lighter metal, and then lead bulge for a bit of a darker metal. I normally use some Balthazar gold for my orcs as well, and then a little bit of Warplock bronze if I want something darker, as well as maybe just a splash of Retributor armor. I'm not going to show the detail of this, but basically I'm going to grab any of these colors that pick my fancy, pick a random spot, and make it metallic. Let's see how that goes. And now that I'm done with the metallics and cleaned out my water pot, all the base coats are done. He's looking great with all that done, but now it's time to give some more definition with some washes. I've got 2 here. I've got Agrax Earthshade, and that will be for all of the brown tanny bits, so the pants, the backpack, pouches and whatnot. I've got some Nuln Oil for the black and the metallic, and then I might also add some Agrax Earthshade over the Nuln Oil for the metallics to make them a bit more grungy. But let me start off with the pants and the belts and the straps and all these bits to make them nice and grimy and defined. And with all those washes dry, that orc, well, mutant as they call him, looks amazing. I mean, he's got definition, he's got shading, he's got a little bit of natural highlights from where the wash didn't sit, and the skin is done, which is the main focal point. At this point in time, I may just pop a base on him and get going, which I probably would for something like an orc boy who I need a good number of. However, I'm going to take him a few steps further. Not parade ready, but just a few things that'll make him pop. So, first things first, I've got some Necron Compound. Ooh, tongue twister. This is a dry brush paint. It's silver. I'm going to just brush this over all the metallics. I'm not going to do each metallic a different color. So, well, no use shaking it. It's a dry paint. It's more of a sludge than a paint. Just get a tiny bit on my brush. Fresh kitchen towel to then get rid of most of it. I know, a bit backwards. Check on my finger. That's okay. Also, additionally, I can check on the base. That is how much paint is going to be left off, which is just enough to highlight things. So if I get that in focus and I rub that across, you'll see it's just enough to sort of pick out the edges of metallics where the light would hit, as well as for the darker metallics to provide a little bit of weathering, maybe. Just some good old highlights. Compare that side there with no... Oh, I'm off camera. Compare that side there with no highlights versus that side with the highlights. It just gives it a bit more oomph. Let's do the same there. And I'll do this, there we go, catching that edge, just taking my time, building up those highlights, especially down all like the little rivets and things. It really does help just give some definition. Pick out the edge a bit more, and then similarly on the knife, I'll just sort of pick out, just to make it look a bit sharper. With the metallics highlighted, the next easy win I find is highlighting the dark colors. So specifically the boots. We've got a dark, almost black, shaded with black. They're very dark. Let's use a little bit of, this is Eshin Grey, which is a nice medium grey. It's very similar to Mechanicus Standard Grey. I'm going to use this as an edge highlight just to pick out certain parts of the boots and the belt and all the other black areas like this, just to add some more definition and highlights. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on the camera, but to me that helps just not look like a flat black blob. You know what? That's actually a bit too subtle for me. Like, I'm no expert in the Citadel color range, but I was using their Eshin Grey, which is admittedly fairly dark grey. Let's go one step up. Let's go Dawnstone. I can always go even further and go something like Fenrisian Grey or Administratum Grey. I have way too many paints. But you know what? Let's go with some Dawnstone and let's see how that looks. Just really make it pop. Basically now I'm going to do much thinner. Ooh, look at that. That's actually beautiful. And this is now a thin highlight on top of the thick highlight. So it is a very, very controlled, thin Dawnstone layer over the chunky Eshin Grey layer, which isn't really necessary. I might go straight to Dawnstone next time, but I actually really like this. It actually looks beautiful. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go around just being selective. I mean, you can barely see those highlights there. So let's just add a little bit more of a bloop and a bloop. Ah, now that is good to me. There we go. I'm actually really happy with that. Really pops out. So now I'm going to do the pants and bandana and all of those bits with some Baneblade brown. So I'm not going to worry too much where the camera patterns are. I'm just going to pick out sort of the raised edges, and I'll have to sort of make it up for some places. There's not too many creases in his pants, but by doing lines like this I can make almost the impression of creases. So I'm going to go around there. The bandana is a lot easier. There are some very, very good creases and bits to pick out there. So let me go along, just picking out all of those raised bits, and then just flip him upside down maybe to get to the edge there. And that looks really good. So let me go around, and all of these bits just get in Baneblade Brown. And now I'll do the same thing to the dark brown with some Gorthor brown. Just picking out all the raised areas to make it look like maybe some distressed leather. And finally a touch of Ushabti bone to do the same thing for all of the light tan areas. Whoops, went a bit overboard there. The really nice thing about this sculpt is it's got very nice raised areas, especially on all these straps. So it's very easy to just actually get a little paint, a little less paint on the brush, and just skim along with the side of my brush. Makes highlighting so easy. And with that, this orc is base coated, washed, and highlighted. He looks amazing. Really is going to stand out nicely with those highlights. Some amazing detail. But there's one more thing I want to do, and that is to just paint those eye lenses. I was going back and forth about color, like Splinter Cell green, but there's enough green, maybe some blue for a lens. But then I realized the sneakiest color. Purple. The reason purple is so sneaky is, have you ever seen a purple orc? No. I've got here some Xerius purple, followed by Gene Stealer purple, and then some Slaanesh grey, which is basically purple. Let's see how this goes. We'll start with the Xerius purple, just dotting that in there. May need 2 coats over the black. Just make sure it looks nice on the camera. This will be the dark foundation for the purple. And then with the Gene Stealer purple and a very nice tip on the brush, I'm going to try and just get the one edge, almost like a crescent shape, covering about half of that eye lens. And then finally with Slaanesh grey, I'm going to get really close and try and just do a dot in the corner. Let's see. And there we have it. His sneaky goggles are complete. There may have been a tiny bit of cleanup that I did off camera. But now let me pop a base on him and see the finished product. And with that, he's complete. He looks amazing. I really love this sculpt. This is the Mutant Special Forces from Black Crag Miniatures. Their current January Patreon. It's completely modular, as I showed earlier. And I'm going to be painting up quite a few of these to use as Ork Commando proxies. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments. This is my first sort of sci-fi 40k-ish miniature, so I'd really appreciate some feedback. Until next time, cheers.